Oh, that is loud. All right. Welcome, everyone. Thank you all for coming, joining us in this room. Welcome to our very first USF Sacramento Town Hall. Yay. We are so excited to have this opportunity for our Sacramento community to come together and meet our USF leadership and to ask them questions, hear their thoughts and ideas for Sacramento and USF as a whole. And before we get started, I would just like to acknowledge that this meeting is being held in the city we call Sacramento on the traditional lands of the Nisenan, Maidu, and Miwok peoples. We would like to honor all ancestral stewards of this land and pay our respects to elders both past and present. And now, without further ado, it is my pleasure to introduce your USF leadership. Joining us today, we have our Provost and Vice President of Academic Affairs, Dr. Chinyere Oparah, and our School of Nursing and Health Professions Dean, Dr. Eileen Fry-Bowers, and our Associate Vice Provost for Educational Effectiveness, Dr. Deborah Panter. And online, we will be joined possibly in just a little bit by the School of Education Dean, Dr. Shabnam Koriala. So thank you so much for being here. I'm going to turn the microphone over to you to make some opening remarks and talk about some great information.
Thank you so much, Christina. And we're just so grateful for your leadership and for the way that you hold this community here and for your warm welcome. So thank you for you and Javier's over there, and Amanda and Leticia and the whole team. So my name is Chinyere Oparah, and my family is from, I think that's too loud. How about that? Is that much better? I was like, that sounded really loud. My family is from England and Nigeria. And so one of the things that we like to do and in a Nigerian context is to really bring ourselves into a space. Welcome, welcome, come in. There's lots of seats on the front row. We like to bring ourselves into a space to know that we're seen and that we're heard. And one of the ways we do that is through a tradition that actually came to this country across the Atlantic with those African captives all those years ago called call and response. Some of you might have heard of it. Basically means that I say something, you say something back. And so I know that you're hearing me, you're with me. And so in a Nigerian context, I would say kedu, and that would mean, how is it? How are you? And you would say, oh, Dema. We have some Nigerians in the house. And that would mean it is good, but I like to translate it as it is God. It is with good. It is good. It is with God. So how about I say to you, kedu? Odema. Okay. Kedu. 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 Ah, okay, we're in the room. I hear that we're very engaged, the students here, so I appreciate that. So let me just say a little bit about who I am. and why I think this space that we're in and the work that we're doing here is so powerful and transformative. And then I'm going to speak a little bit to some questions that you sent over. And I appreciate some of you making the time to do that. As I mentioned, my journey is very much one as a global citizen. And that's one of the things that really attracted me to USF, because we are we were number one, we're now number two ranked for diversity of our student population. And we're also one of the most international universities in the country. And so that is really important to me. We come to this space together from all of our diverse journeys and our diverse communities and our histories, but we have this united common humanity and this united dream of a different future. And that idea is that different future is one that we are together going to co-create. So that's really important to me, that we recognize that there's a strength in our diversity, and that we have different journeys and different communities and different families, but we share something in common, right? And I hope that that's one of the reasons why you chose to get a USF education, right? We think about USF as really advancing social justice in our mission, in all of our programs. And that doesn't just mean an abstract idea that we think good thoughts, right? It's that we're actually doing good things, like we're doing this work together in our communities. So that's really critical. So I came over to this country about 25 years ago, and I was just coming for a short visit, actually. I don't know if any of your family members had that experience, but I fell in love with the community here. And I started teaching actually at UC Berkeley, first of all. I loved teaching, but I really didn't love having a classroom of 80, 90, 100 plus students. And there were so many students that had the same name. And they would say to me, can you write me a reference? And I would say, I'd like to write you a recommendation, but there was so many students in the class that we didn't really get to know each other. And so I ended up teaching at a small women's college called Mills College, where it was a very liberal arts, intimate space. And along the way, my background is as a sociologist, but I studied the sociology of race and ethnicity. And so I taught for 20 years in ethnic studies, which is one of the programs, very much like many of the programs you're in, whether it's the MFT, MPH, that is all about transforming communities and transforming lives, right? In fact, some of you might know ethnic studies didn't exist. It's not a historical discipline. It was created by students. Student protest actually created it. And the program I was in was the first ethnic studies program ever created in a independent college. San Francisco State was the very first. And it was created as a result of students taking over the president's office and sitting there and saying, we're not moving until we get an ethnic studies program. So you can tell I'm very excited about student agency, student power, and the kinds of activism that we do in the community that makes a difference. So I did that for 20 years. And along the way, folks said to me, we really need this kind of leadership that we have in ethnic studies. By then, I'd been the chair for a good 10 years. I was the faculty advisor for the Black Student Collective also. We need this kind of leadership for the whole university, because the university was beginning to look a lot like ethnic studies was looking like, very diverse over the years. And so I moved over into administration, and I came into administration, became the provost at that place, out of a love for students and out of a desire to create a real sense that every student could feel a real sense of home, sense of belonging, and that we all are a part of this thing, doing something powerful and important together. And so that university's mission was around gender and racial justice. Very, very small, very small, less than 1,000 students. And so just over a year ago, again, folks came knocking and said, there's this really amazing university across the bay, that was in Oakland, in San Francisco, that is really got a mission and a vision around advancing justice, serving over 10,000 students, and one of the most diverse universities in the whole nation. Why don't you come find out a little bit about it? And I was particularly excited about a few things. One, our School of Nursing and Health Professions. By that time, I'd been doing research on Black women's experience with maternal health care. And I personally, my daughter's 12, about 12 years ago, I shifted my research agenda to start working on Black maternal health, because I had an experience of being hospitalized during my early pregnancy and almost losing my life, actually. And it's now actually found out this is not uncommon for Black women who are very healthy, yogis, and eat healthily, and never really had any significant health problems, to have life-threatening circumstances during pregnancy. And so having that experience was a shock and a wake-up call for me. And I began to partner with different community members. My doula was the first person who joined, and different community members, to really transform things. And we were able to put together a book called Battling Over Birth, Black Women in the Maternal Health Care Crisis, which was focusing on California, but then became a nationwide thing. And we partnered with folks around the country, and resulting in the passage of the creation of the Black Maternal Healthcare Caucus and the Black Maternal Healthcare Week. And now we all probably know about these things, but 12 years ago, nobody knew. It was like a hidden secret. So I was so excited to see that we had a school here that was dedicated to health equity, not just health care, but how can healthcare be equitable, and really transforming health outcomes. And so that was important and exciting to me. And I was also very excited about School of Education, because obviously educational access, educational equity, two of the things that I've dedicated my whole life and career towards. And so coming to this community, I wanted to find out, how can we have a broader impact? And one of the ways that we can do that is by our campuses in Sacramento. Our campus also, many of you know, we have one in Orange County. We have very small, what we might call satellites in other parts as well, Santa Rosa. But these are our two main campuses. And so, I came in and we started having these conversations about what could we do even better. There's this concept in Jesuit education called Magis. Does anyone know what Magis is about? Is Magis, M-A-G-I-S? No, we got that one. So Magis is the concept of doing more, living into our mission more. So the idea that, yes, we're all doing a lot already. And, you can wake up and you can kind of feel tired and overwhelmed with what's in front of you, but there's more need out there, right? We all know this, right? And so we have to find ways that the institutions we're part of and the communities we're part of can do more to serve and to meet those needs. I think that's sort of why you're all here, right? You're trying to meet those needs. And so Magis really, to me, means that there's more that we have to do. There's more community need that we need to meet. And that, you are here learning and getting skills and competencies and confidence so that you can go out there and be those change makers and change agents. And we want to be able to do more of that in the Sacramento region, and for our communities here. So I'm excited to hear your thoughts about how we can do more, not only for our students, but also the work that you can do for our communities, because that's what we're here for, right? The idea, have you heard this concept, the Jesuit education concept, people for and for others, or people with and for others? Yes. So did anyone want to explain that one to me? I heard a yes. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry, somebody said yes. I heard it from the back, but I didn't know where it came from. Go ahead. Do you want to quickly introduce your name and the program you're in? Right. Thank you so much. Thank you, Daniel. Absolutely. And, and the concept has evolved, because it used to be men and women for others. And then we try to move beyond the gender binary. So it became people for others. And then we recognize that, hey, but actually some of us are from the communities that we're trying to be for. So then it became people with and for others. So that's sort of where we've ended up with. But absolutely, yeah. And so this idea that we are here not just for our own, to fill our own pocket and to have the 3-car garage and the fancy house. Now, I want you all to have a fancy house, and maybe not 3 cars because we're trying to go green, but that's so important too. So our career outcomes are really critically important, and we take this very seriously. But along the way, we want to make sure that's not what it's for, right? because you do good work, you'll get compensated for that good work and you'll be able to support your family. And if you're from a Nigerian family, it's going to be a whole extended family that you're supporting. Still sending money home. But it's also that what you're really doing it for is that people for others, right? It's for our communities. And I think most of us are probably from communities. Who's here from raised in a community that really believes that we're here to serve the community, that our primary purpose is to serve a community? Is that a value in your community, right? As opposed to that our primary function is to get rich, right? So I think that that's a really important piece, that we want to, have lives of meaning and purpose, lives where we are well compensated for good work because we're highly skilled and we're highly desirable employees, right? Where we're leaders, where we're change agents, and where we're making a real difference. So those are some of the reasons why I'm excited to be in this space with you. We were supposed to be here last year, and then the pandemic, just like it shut everything else down, shut that down. So we didn't manage to have this space last year. So I'm excited to be here this year. And so some of the, I appreciate you sending some questions forward. And so some of the challenges, right, of being in a space, actually, first of all, not being in space, right? The challenges we had over the last few years being in this pandemic. And trying the best as we could to pivot to that online modality. And one of the questions that came up was like, well, when we were all learning online, or when we increasingly, that continues, we have these online courses, why do we have to pay the same tuition? Is it the same experience? Is one of the questions that came up. And, we know that this has happened sometimes since we've started coming back in person. In some instances, we've had, we've thought about having cohorts where we've combined folks from Orange County as well as from here. And so in order to create space, we've been in Zoom, those kind of things. But it's the new reality, right? The new reality is that our educational experiences are increasingly hybrid, high flex, all of those high terms. And there was a lot of controversy during the early pandemic where students all across the country were asking, well, wait, we're not in the classroom, we're not seeing each other, we're not having the spaces. Is this the same? Is this really something that is considered the same? And so there was lots of evaluations done by our accrediting bodies. I think there were some lawsuits nationwide where students were asking these questions, and the consensus nationwide was that the focus has got to be on the learning outcomes. What are your student learning outcomes? Are you meeting them? The competencies that you get. So are you actually getting that education? If you're not getting those learning outcomes and those student competencies, you're not going to be equipped. Are you equipped to then go and do that job in that area of work? And if that's the case, that is actually what the tuition is paying for. So that's what we followed. That's that sort of that nationwide trend, and our accrediting bodies have said that we need to make sure that it's not about, did you sit right there in that chair and get this experience? But it's like, did you get those competencies? Did you actually get the experience? Are you equipped to go out and do the work? And I know that in nursing in particular, it's very physical, right? And so we want to make sure that there are certain experiences that are hands-on. And that actually is not just something we want to make sure that we wouldn't be accredited if we didn't make sure that happened. So we make sure that we follow all of those protocols. But I did want to just say a little bit about that, and we can talk more about it. But that's sort of where things have landed, both nationwide and also at USF in the same way. We don't charge different rates for our online and our in-person classes. There was a cluster of questions about student services. And I know that, who had the opportunity to come to the student fair that we had here on campus? Just a few hands? Okay, let's ask that again. Put your hand up really high. Oh, okay. The resource fair. Yeah, sorry. So we're gonna have another resource fair. When is it gonna be? In March 2nd, if you don't have it already. It was a really fun day, and there was a lot of good fun things to take home too. Apparently I should have worn my captain's hat. You have one too, right? Oh, you didn't get one? Oh, okay. If you don't have your USF captain's hat, it's really cute. You have to come just for that. But so the resource fair is an attempt to get you face to face with people, in a physical room that you can have access to online. Increasingly over the last several years, our students are accessing a lot of the services online now. Students on the Hilltop as well as up here as well as in Sacramento. I find that I have office hours, by the way. You can actually come to my office hours because my office hours are entirely online because the students didn't want to walk up the steps, those who are on the Hilltop, to come see me. So we have made sure that all of our student services are available online. I don't know what it was like before the pandemic because I wasn't here before the pandemic, but I do know that at this point we have all of those services available to you online. And so that's our goal, is to make sure that whether it's our university ministry, we have programming that's online, whether that's our student disability services, whether that's our career services, that you can book appointments and that you can talk with individuals and get the services and support that you need online. If you find that you're getting a roadblock to accessing that, you should talk to your team here, Christina and Javier, and they will try and figure out what it is that you're not getting access to and how you should be able to get access to that. But we're very committed to making sure you have access. And we actually realized that even the mental health, we're finding that there's a lot more take up of our mental health services online than in the actual in-person. So we want to make sure that you know about those and that you come to those resource fairs. They're going to be hopefully once a semester, I believe. Kudos to Javier who put that together, because I know that that's a new thing that having on campus. And more folks will be coming up from the hilltop to just meet with you all, so that when you do that Zoom or you do that virtual appointment, it's somebody you've had an opportunity to interact with. So that's something that we're doing there. And really those are, again, we try not to distinguish. We try to make sure that we have a positive experience for our online as well as our in-person experiences. I did notice walking around that you get to see many of the spaces on campus on your photos. It's not the same as actually walking to the church. I recognize that. I hope that some of you have the opportunity to come and visit the campus, and certainly for there's a commencement ceremony that we do up here, right? I think for the BSN students, we have a little pinning ceremony that we have as well up here as well. But most of the experiences and student experiences, we're trying to make sure we have those available online for you as well. A lot of the talks as well. I mean, so I think it's important for the co-curricular. I learned so much from attending some of these talks and workshops that we've been having. So I hope that you look at those. I know it's a bit overwhelming when you go to the USF events page to see them all, but they are indicated, and many of them online, and it indicates which ones you can participate in as well. But I know that sometimes you want to be here in space. You have your lounge and other spaces here. So we want to make sure that we hear from you what ideas you have. We were just talking earlier on about workshops and things that we might want to add here, making sure that we have them on a day that you can actually attend, because we don't want to have people come out and then there's no one here to be in the workshop. So give us more ideas for things and activities that you'd like to see happening here too. And we'll see if we can make those happen. I think the last set of questions that I saw was about, one question that I saw was about international student services, and just wanted to make sure, or really asking about what are the international student services and do we have access? So we do have a really strong international student ISSS. Am I missing one? International Student Support Services, I think it is, office. And they do, again, offer, virtual appointments and online opportunities to meet with them. So if you are not, you should definitely look on the website and connect with them, but you could also talk to Javier and Christina. They can connect you. We have a team that are passionately supportive of our international students. They recognize there are particular roadblocks, whether that's visa issues, whether that's the challenges around having permission to do certain work placements that I know if they're paid, you can't get access sometimes. But they have some good strategies for helping you to navigate all of those things. So if that's your situation, I hope that you will definitely connect with our international student support team, because they are here for you and they know that you are here in Sacramento and they want to make sure that they're meeting your needs as well. So those were a few of the questions that I saw, and we'll have more opportunity. I'll stop talking so we'll have more opportunity for you to ask more questions and just share experiences. I'd love to hear, what are you excited about? What are the things that you want to do with your education here? What are some of your experiences that you're having working in the community that you want me to know about, so I can take those and be sharing with the Hilltop community some of your successes and some of the things you're doing that are so powerful here. But for that, I'll take a pause first, and I'll pass on to our Dean, Eileen Fry-Bowers, one of our newest members of the Provost team. She joined us in July, and so excited to have her join us. Coming from University of San Diego, where she's done an extraordinary amount of work, both on the public health side and on the nursing side, which is great for our school. And somebody who's such a passionate advocate for health equity, but also somebody who is just a really humane, compassionate, and kind leader. And I'm hearing so many great things from the School of Nursing and Health Professions about her leadership. So excited to hear your words today.
Thank you so much, Provost Chinyere. Well, I'm so excited to be here. Can I just see who are students that are School of Nursing and Health Professions? Oh, okay. So a lot of, all right. And welcome to everybody else as well. So I'll just, you may have had the chance to read about my background when the announcement was made, but I'll just tell you a little bit briefly so you kind of know what my life experiences are. I'm a qualitative researcher. And so when we talk about the types of ways that you collect information, ways that you collect data with qualitative research, we always talk about, how does one's life experience affect the information and the data that you're collecting from that individual? How does, where they're coming from, how do they see the world? So I think it's really important that I share my background with you so that you see how I see the world, and then that of course influences my leadership and sort of the ways I think about nursing and healthcare. And I like to talk in terms of health development rather than healthcare, and I'll get into that in just a second. But I've been a nurse for a really long time. I'm not going to disclose how long, but I've been a nurse long enough to have seen pretty much every nursing shortage. However, I would say that this is the one that they're telling us is the worst, but I've heard that every decade. So I've been a nurse a few decades. I started out at actually got my 2-year degree, and then I went right back in and got my 4-year degree. So I have pretty much seen nursing education at all levels. I started working in the adult ICU in a surgical trauma ICU, again, during one of the worst nursing shortages. So by my 9th month as a new grad nurse, I was the evening charge nurse for a level 1 trauma surgical ICU. I often ask what what were they thinking? Because, that was an awfully broad responsibility for someone who was only 21 years old. It was a really great experience. I learned a tremendous amount. The number one thing I learned was the importance of teamwork. And I think that that's something that I've carried throughout my entire professional career. I decided that I wanted something a little bit different. I had lived at home when I went to college. So I thought, okay, I want to go see the world. So what's a great way to see the world? I joined the military. So I became a Navy nurse, and I got to see the world. Maybe parts that I were never on my knowledge, I never had knowledge about from a geographical standpoint, but I did get the chance to see the world. I've crossed the equator, which is, for those of you who know anything about like the history of the sea, that's a really big deal when you get to cross the equator. I came back and I was given the opportunity to start taking care of children. And I found my true calling when I started working with children in the intensive care. And so for the rest of my career, I focused on the care of children and families. I went back to school at that point and got my master's degree as both a pediatric nurse practitioner and clinical nurse specialist, worked in a number of different settings. Through that, I've worked in community clinics, federally qualified health centers. I've sat on the board for a school-based health clinic. And then, of course, I've worked in the ICU and the emergency department. I'm probably, if I were to describe myself, I'd say I'm an peds ICU nurse at heart. That's really what I've loved to have done, but I've loved every other aspect of the care that I've provided over the years. One of the things that I found so frustrating, though, was when I would take care of a family and a child in the ICU, I would see all of the barriers and crises and other challenges that those families encountered that either led to their experience in the ICU or made their experience in the ICU more difficult, or were going to make it difficult when they left the ICU to care for their child. And so I became very interested in health policy, and I found myself registering for law school as a result. And so I went to law school, and through my legal education, focused a lot on healthcare and on public policy and on children's rights issues. And I had the chance to work in those areas. And then I found my way back to academia, and I've been there ever since. And I've had the opportunity to be on faculty in schools of medicine, public health, and nursing. And so now I've really found sort of, the North Star being at the University of San Francisco, because now I get to work with students that are both nursing students, as well as public health students, as well as clinical psychology and healthcare informatics students. And it's very exciting to me because it's all of those professions. And I get to work very closely with my colleagues in the School of Education too, because all of those really form health. And so when I talk about health development, I really do mean all of those things that lead to somebody leading a healthy life. So it's where they live, it's the kind of job they have, or the kind of job their parents have, or the level of education that they have, or the level of education that their parents have. My doctoral dissertation, so when I got my PhD, I studied health literacy, because how we take in and use information that's available to us really does impact our health. We certainly saw that throughout the last couple of years with the pandemic. So now I find myself at USF. I came from the University of San Diego, where I was on faculty in the School of Nursing and Health Science. And then I was also in the provost office there. And I was in the provost office with the pandemic. And I got the chance to really see from the higher education side what needed to be done. But I also spent a lot of time both through the School of Nursing as well as through some volunteer work that I do for the state of California, really looking at my nursing colleagues and how the pandemic was impacting them. And, I really felt called to try to be part of the solution moving forward. We had not just the pandemic, but while I've been teaching social determinants of health since 2007, people started finally listening to that during the pandemic. We had, all of the crises around people woke up to the fact of that, race affects health, right? And the inequities that exist in this country because of where somebody lives, or because of who somebody loves, or because of what somebody looks like, or what language that they speak. So, I looked at the moment and I said, here's a prime opportunity to make a difference at the highest levels. And that means, sort of starting with the grassroots, right? And that's the education of our professionals who work in these environments. And so when I was contacted about the position at USF, I said, sign me up. Well, I didn't say sign me up just then. I said, sign me up after I had the chance to talk to Provost Oparah, because, and that was one of the things that I wanted to know, what the leadership of USF, what they had in mind in terms of nursing education and health professions education. And I think we clicked probably in the first 5 minutes when we were talking about health equity. And I really shared my vision that we really need to not just focus on healthcare, but we need to focus on health development. And so that's really how I look at what we're doing in the School of Nursing and Health Professions. Is how are we developing health in communities? And of course, that extends throughout the entire continuum of care. So speaking towards the, one other thing that I wanted to mention, I mentioned that I was a Navy nurse. So when I found out that there was the VANAP program at USF, I have to say that was a huge influencer to me. It is something that I feel very strongly about, having cared for members of the service as a Navy nurse, but also, recognizing the need for continued care for our veterans population. And probably one of the most vivid and deep memories and most educational experiences I had was when I took my medical surgical course and I did my clinicals at the Loma Linda VA in Southern California. So that was a profound learning experience for me. So I know what great opportunities there are to be able to serve our veterans at the same time as providing an educational experience. So the partnership that we have with the VA to run the VANAP program is really important to me. And I know that there have been some challenges over the last few years for a number of different reasons. And I want to let you know that we are we've sort of done that deep dive assessment and are really looking at where the challenges exist and how we can best support you and how we can best grow and develop and strengthen the program. I mentioned that I studied as a pediatric nurse practitioner and clinical nurse specialist. And one of the things you may, I'm not sure where each of you are at in your curriculum, if you've taken like your evidence-based practice classes yet, but one of the things that I adhere to is the Donabedian model of structure, process, and outcome. So if you're going to, and actually there's antecedent there too, that's the qualitative researcher in me, the context. But when you really got to trying to figure out what you're doing with things, you really got to look at the structures that are in place, the processes that are in place, and then how those impact the outcomes. So certainly the outcome that we want is all of you to get a wonderful education, pass the board, and go on to being a very happy and productive professional nurse. So what are those structures and processes that we can put in place? One of the first structures is making sure that you have good on the ground leadership here at the Sacramento campus. And so we have a new co-director, and there we've got, I don't know, have you had the chance to meet your new co-director, Dr. Irene Sue? Not everybody. So we are very excited that we now have a co-director. We have not had a VA co-director in a few years. So we're very excited. And then we are interviewing for a USF co-director. And so we're looking forward to hiring. This educational experience is a partnership between the VA and USF. So it's a little bit different than being on the hilltop, but we're looking at strengthening that structure. And then we're also looking at the processes, how we interact with the VA. Now that we have a partner in the VA, we really can look at how we interact with the VA and solve some of those challenges that have been in existence. The last thing I want to mention is that you're going to hear more about this, and that's what you're learning, and that's driven by something called the Essentials. The Essentials is our curriculum that comes from the American Association of Colleges of Nursing. We are undergoing a revision of that curriculum nationwide. All schools of nursing are doing this. And so we're taking that on at USF. So you're going to hear from us more about how we can improve the curriculum, what changes we can make to really make sure that we're providing you with a great education across the continuum of care. And so there's a lot of behind the scenes work that's happening in that regard. But when we invite for your feedback, we really mean it. We really want your feedback to understand your learning experiences so that we can continue to grow and strengthen our curriculum. So I'm happy to answer any questions as we move on, but I think we're on a time structure.
Just so that we make sure we have time for conversation, we're going to have Deborah sort of answer one of your questions and fold in her remarks that way. So let's open up to, and Deborah really focuses on student success, student experience. So I'm sure there'll be lots that she has to say. So yeah, comments, questions, thoughts. Oh, go ahead. Oh, is she there now? Is she, so she's just listening? I mean, we can hear her. Okay. So is she going to answer questions? Okay, so we also have our Dean of the School of Education if you want to ask any questions for her. So comments, questions, thoughts, responses, call and response.
what was your name again? Drew, thank you so much. It's interesting that you bring this up. I was having this exact conversation with one of our associate deans yesterday. So I absolutely appreciate your concerns and this challenge. We have the CAPS, which is open to all students. And again, as Provost Chinyere said, students can get online appointments to be able to talk with those individuals who work in the CAPS, the counseling services that are provided by the university. But I think what you're touching on is the very unique experience that students have in the nursing setting in particular, where they may see a code, they may have taken care of a patient for several weeks and the patient expires, and how do they deal with that? That is something that we're looking at within. It does not exist right now in the School of Nursing specific to nursing students, but that is something that we are looking at to figure out how we can provide those kinds of support services. In the meantime, I would certainly encourage students to reach out to their clinical instructor. And oftentimes within the clinical setting itself, there are, particularly in code situations and so forth, many facilities have debriefing and resources right then and there in the setting for all of the individuals who are involved in this, and that includes the students. So students should feel comfortable taking advantage of that experience as well. But I would certainly encourage students to reach out to their clinical instructor in addition. But we are looking at that, and we are working on something within the School of Nursing to address exactly that. Mhm. Right.
For that, I was just curious. Thank you. Yeah, if there was something very specific for counseling services, given the very sort of unique program that we are in.
You hit the nail on the head. It's definitely a need, and we're definitely working on it.
Thank you.
I had a quick question about our registration that I think from my cohort. My name is Yalda. I'm also a junior 1 BSN student. We're struggling kind of in registration for our core classes. My question is that, are we required to take our core classes in person? Because most of the students they commute from very like 1 hour, 2 hours. And we already requested many times to the administrative, like if they make it possible for us to take our core classes online through Zoom, but we never had that option. If we can request for that, like make it possible for students to attend their core classes online.
Thank you for raising that. So we actually, one of the things you may or may not know is that USF launched a new strategic plan. Who knows about our new strategic plan? Anyone? All right, we'll make sure that you get that link sent out to you. It was actually a community-driven plan where we had members from all across the campus come together and put it together. And I'm getting to your point. And one of it has 6 sort of pillars or 6 goals. And the first goal is to reimagine Jesuit education, which means to really look at what are we doing and recognize this is a new moment. This is a new historic moment. We need to recognize that education needs to change. And so we've started all kinds of ways of thinking in new ways about curriculum. And the core curriculum is one of those. So there's actually just right now a task force being pulled together to revise the core curriculum. And to look at what are student needs and how are student needs evolving? How is the world changing? How does the curriculum need to change as well? Funnily enough, our core curriculum was first adopted, I believe, 20 years ago. It was updated with addition of community engaged learning and the diversity requirement. But pretty much the core, the structure of it has remained unchanged. So we want to reimagine it. We want to re-envision it. So that's a part of that conversation. And so it's really helpful. They will be coming out and they'll be having sessions, I think, on Zoom to consult students about what are their thoughts and feelings about the core and what could change. And that seems like one of the comments that should come forward for sure. And it's one that I think that typically they think about the core as being a more in-person experience. But again, we want to meet the needs of our diverse students. So thank you for raising that.
And additionally, I don't know if this is going to help you, but we've done some research recently to see what kind of classes students want to take in the summer. And one of the overwhelming responses was core courses online. And so keep an eye out for the summer schedule when it comes out, which should be very soon, I think, and see if there's anything that might help you out there. Yeah.
For enough students, we're different that we cannot take core classes into the main campus. We have to take core classes in this campus and it has to be in person, which is really problematic for us. For example, we only take one core class right now, which is ethics. And that's on Monday from 8 to 9 p.m. From 4 to 8 p.m. We'll be taking the same exact class next semester. And it's really hard for us to find daycare in that time of the day from 4 to 8 p.m., especially for me as a mom. It's hard for me to find a daycare. So like I requested that if we can take the class online into the main campus, and they were like, no, we can't do that. Yeah, thank you.
Good morning still. Thank you to be here. We appreciate you guys hear us, and we really want to have you guys more, frequently here. I think it's so important for us. That's the reason why we are in this university, to have the education that you guys provide, the whole university, but also we have some concerns too as a student. And thank you to be here. So my question is, as a university require for us to do survey every semester, like how, I know I'm little, sorry. Yeah. In order to say how everything go during the semester with our instructor. And sometimes when no professors get matching with the students. So sometimes we are not happy about it. And we take the time and to do this survey and say, well, we will do with this professor, but we didn't feel good with that, because sometimes we feel the instructor probably is not listening to us for concern when the whole class is struggling. So my question is how we take this time to do this survey, but we see, let's say after next semester, we see the same professor, when many students had complained about it, came back to the clinical setting first or to the campus. So how do our survey apply in order to have this professor back?
Thank you so much for that question. So there's a lot of parts to the answer. One of the first parts is that, as I mentioned, our program is a partnership with the VA. So some of the faculty are hired, are USF faculty, some of the faculty are VA faculty. So that is one piece of the puzzle. The other piece of the puzzle is, as I mentioned before, we hadn't had a VA co-director, and then for a while we haven't had a USF co-director. So we've not had leadership, a solid leadership team in place. So there hasn't been anybody available to really look at the evaluations and do something about those evaluations. So as I mentioned, I focus on structure, process, and outcomes. So we now have leadership coming into place. So we have Dr. Sue in place. We're interviewing for a USF co-director. So we will have the leadership in place to review your feedback and your suggestions and your comments. And we will be putting a process in place in order to do that, to make sure it happens regularly. And so we can address those kinds of concerns. And so if the faculty is USF faculty, then there's a certain process that we will follow with them. If they're VA faculty, then there's a certain process we will follow with them. So there's a couple of pieces to this issue, but I recognize how important it is. And we want to make sure that the faculty that are teaching are effective, supportive educators. And so that's our primary goal and our primary responsibility to you. So as I'm, so I can't speak to the issues that have occurred previously. I can speak forward, and that's what we're going to be doing to address this issue.
Let me also say that part of this is about professional development for our faculty. So USF really takes teaching and pedagogy really, really seriously. And we have a Center for Teaching Excellence. And so when a dean identifies that a faculty member perhaps might have strengths over here, but there might be, areas that they need improvement in, then, what we want to do is we want to make everything that they're doing at that same level. And so typically they'll develop a professional development plan with them, where they might have some coaching and support and attend certain workshops around whatever the area is that they need improvement in. So again, it's not necessarily, even if you do fill out a survey and a number of students say, we don't like the fact that this instructor, for example, talks at us and doesn't have enough opportunity for us to have, engagement, then you might not see that instructor disappear. You might see that instructor shifting some of their teaching practices because they're getting that support. So that's one of our goals, is to really look carefully at, is this something that we can have some improvement there? Or is this something that perhaps it's a part-time faculty member that is just not a good fit for us?
I just had a quick comment. Who has not taken ethics yet that had that same concern about it being online? Because there actually is an online asynchronous ethics course through USF over this coming up summer that I was able to enroll in. So if anyone needed that, you can just come see me. I can give you the CRN number. Amanda actually showed it to me, and then I contacted the professor, and it is asynchronous over summer online. So if anyone was worried about that, don't trip. Hold on, we have a question coming in here. Oh, okay. Okay. Okay, no, that's fine. I'm not nervous. So this is regarding kind of scholarships through USF and how maybe they're accessible to the Hilltop students. And then it says here future cohorts might be able to get them. Personally, I am not quite sure, so maybe if we know. Absolutely.
I know that the Sacramento students aren't able to get the merit scholarships that the Hilltop are. And we also do have summer classes that aren't included in the financial aid packet. So I wanted to ask what are your what's the plans for helping students, and especially with students who do want to get higher education that may not have the ability to because of financial status? What's the plan in helping future students and helping us with our next moves?
A little bit, yeah. So I don't have the detail about the specific scholarships that are and aren't available here, but I'll tell you sort of the bigger picture, which is that financial issues and financial barriers are a huge issue for us. We're a Jesuit university, and so our goal is not to educate wealthy students. Our goal is to educate students who can use the education to make a difference, right? And so one of the things that we have done, we just closed out our last campaign, which focused a third of the money, or more than a third of the money, focused on student scholarships. And we're launching another one to try to get more funding. Typically, when you get funded scholarships, it's coming because we got those gifts in. We put it in the endowment, and then every year we take those resources and we use it towards supporting students. So that's something that, is ongoing, those fundraising efforts. And I think that, so that's one source. And then the other source that we have for some scholarships has been where we get federal grants, which are focused on really educational access for disadvantaged communities. And then those federal dollars are just passed through, they come to us and we just pass them right on to the eligible students. We have some of those in the School of Nursing Health Professions. So, we'll take your feedback here today and see where those gaps, and see where we can do, more of that fundraising, both for the donor focused money and also for the federal grants. I don't know if you wanted to add anything specific about the federal one.
With the federal grants and with the state grants, oftentimes it depends on what the call from the funder is, the specific agency. And so there are sometimes regional limitations. So we don't always get to pick sort of when we apply We apply to maximize what we can provide students, but sometimes it's dependent on the funder and they determine, and it's based on like where a student lives, not necessarily the fact that they're attending the university. So there's a number of different criteria that we sometimes have to answer to, but we try to apply to everything and hope that we're able to get a large mix of funds that are available to students.
What I'll also say that it speaks to the larger issue of student success. And, you know, we've moved, do you want to talk a little bit about that? Because I think that will also tie to making sure that Sacramento is top of mind as we're doing that fundraising work.
Hi, everybody. I know we're out of time, so I'll make this very quick. I'm Deborah Panter, and I am the Associate Vice Provost for Educational Effectiveness. And I've been a lawyer a lot longer than Dean Frybowers has been a nurse. But when my kids were little, we moved to Moraga, and somebody from St. Mary's asked if I would consider teaching a class. And I did, and I loved it. And from there, I got a full-time teaching appointment. And from there, I moved into administration around educational quality, around assessment of student learning and assuring continuous improvement in student learning. So I was pulled over to USF, and I've just loved working here for 6 years. And around this time last year, Provost Oparah asked whether or not we should realign the additional locations, including Sacramento, to more closely work with folks who are responsible for ensuring educational quality. And I said, yes, absolutely, of course. And so I've been working with Christina and Javier and Hannah here to make sure that your programs all are of the highest educational quality, that we are assuring ourselves that students are learning what we think we're teaching them, which is what assessment is all about. And we're also embarking on a 5-year plan to see what kind of programs should be here. Not only the programs that are currently here that are all very focused on serving the community, but are there other programs that would suit the community here? And if so, where can we grow to? Would it be another space on this campus? Would it be another building altogether? And so in the next few years, we're starting now with some market research. We'll be looking to see what the growth trajectory of this campus is. How's that?
And so having somebody on the provost team who's thinking about all of our programs, but particularly thinking about you all, is really helpful, because as we have conversations, for example, right now, we're having conversations about where should we be focusing our fundraising efforts? What grant writing can we do? It's making sure that as we're looking at the grant agencies, that our grants office doesn't just look at the San Francisco serving agencies, but they also look at the agencies up here. So I think that was my point, was that as we're having Deborah in the room, we can make sure that people are aware. And, you know, because we're here and we're thinking about you, but we need to make sure that every office is also holding that top of mind. So I think that will help. It's not a concrete, yes, here's $1 million today, but it's a process of how do we actually get there to try to get more resources for the students here, because the work that you're doing is really transformative, and you know, you're serving some of the communities that we most desperately want to serve. So thank you. Thank you so much, Christina. Thanks all of you. Great to see you all.
On behalf of our USF Sacramento community, we'd like to thank you all for being here. Deborah, Chinyere, Eileen, and Shabnam online, if you can hear me. We really appreciate you hearing all of our students and their voices. And they do have to get to class, and we want to give them a little time for lunch. So we're going to let you go, but we also want to say on behalf of the staff, thank you so much for coming as well and being a part of this first and hopefully not last event. There is some lunch in the lounge for you guys if you'd like to grab the hallway, and those that are online, I will make sure that you get some goodies as well. So thank you everyone so much for coming and around campus.